right, well, good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Lakota Board of Education to order. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Jenny, roll call, please.
Going a little behind.
Oh, you're fine.
Mrs.
I just
O'Connor,
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mr. Parnell,
Yes.
Mr. Level.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to our next section tonight, and that is comments. I do not have any comments myself. Mr. Miller?
I'm good right now. I'll save some for later, but thanks.
Okay.
Same here. I'll have comments later on.
Okay, fantastic. That takes us to our student spotlight session or section of the meeting. Mrs. Fuller?
Good evening, everyone. This evening, we're going to combine our student and staff spotlights because they go hand in hand, or hand in paw, as the case may be tonight. Hopewell Jr. recently gained a new staff member who came to the school as a result of some out-of-the-box thinking. Our special services department was looking for a new way to meet the social and emotional needs of our students. After extensive research, Executive Director Andrea Longworth found CircleTail, a nonprofit organization that provides service and hearing dogs to people with disabilities. From there, a great partnership was born. Having a therapy dog in our schools is a pilot program for both Lakota and for CircleTail. Tonight, you'll hear from two Hopewell Junior students, Faith Nickel and Alexa Izquierdo, and Assistant Principal Leanna Weber. You'll also have the opportunity to meet Zooey. Mrs. Weber?
Hello. President Level, Mr. Miller, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to come tonight. We're super excited to share our newest staff member, Zooey. Zooey has come to us quite suddenly after our problem-solving session, as Mrs. Fuller said, that we had back in the fall, just trying to think outside the box. At Hopewell Junior, we believe strongly in meeting the needs of every child, going above and beyond whatever we need to do to meet the needs of the whole child. And so this was something that just kind of came in a brainstorming session. And I thought, I don't know how that's ever going to happen, and then it did. And so I won't talk long, but I invited two of my students to explain how Zooey, so far in the short time we've had her, has impacted them. So I asked Alexa Izquierdo to come up first, and she has something she would like to say.
Hello, my name is Alexis Izquierdo, and I am an 8th grader at Hopewell Junior. I'm here to talk to you about how much students need Zooey and how much Zooey needs us. I would like to start off by saying that Zooey is such an amazing dog that she helps our students in the most amazing ways. Zooey is a great friend to everyone at our school. She helps kids who are not in the best mindset or people who are stressing for the next test and so much more. Personally, Zooey has even helped me. She makes me smile and laugh when I'm feeling down. She is simply irresistible for me and my fellow peers. Zooey makes an impact on Hopewell students' lives in the most best way possible. Zooey has become loved and valued to Hopewell Junior, and we hope she never leaves because she is a part of our Hopewell family. Thank you.
All right, now I'd like to introduce Faith Nickel.
Hi, my name is Faith Nicole, and I am a student at Hopewell Junior. I'm in the 7th grade. I think that Zooey is an awesome dog, make us really happy, want me to go to school. I feel like I'm the only deaf kid there, and Zooey's the only dog there, so I feel like I have a connection with Zooey.
So
And I feel like whenever I get there, Zoe's there to say hi to me, and whenever I'm leaving, she's there to say bye.
So how do you think she's helped us all at Hopewell Junior?
I feel like Zoe has helped us express our feelings and try to understand how other people feel.
She answered all the questions I had.
Sorry. I'm nervous, sorry.
Can't tell.
You said all the things we talked about.
I am really happy to have Zoe at school.
Thank you, Alexa, and thank you, Faith. I'm just here to answer any questions you might have. We're having a great time. This has been such an awesome transition. I was very nervous, didn't know what this was going to look like. Inside of a week, she's just become part of what we do at Hopewell. And so, what questions would you have for us?
Can you give us an example of how Zoe is incorporated into the school day?
Sure. She starts her day. She has 3 handlers. So actually, Miss Colbert here is one of the handlers. 3 that were trained by Circle Tail. So I'm one, Miss Colbert's one, Mr. Groft's one. So we split her day up pretty much with the 3 of us. So we each get about a third of the day. So she starts her day with me at arrival. We greet cars. We greet kids coming into the school. She spends a lot of time getting just completely pampered first thing in the morning. She loves that. Then she goes to PE class. We have our first period PE class. We noticed that Zoe was a little energetic in the morning, like the opposite of most of our students. So we decided PE class was a good way to start her day. So she does laps around the gym. There are certain students who might not be able to participate in all of the activities, and so she walks with those students in circles around the gym. She puts, I think they said 3,000 or 4,000 steps on the pedometer before most of us have had our coffee. She's looking at the baby. What is that? So then she spends a little time in the office. She might spend time with a school counselor, any student who might need her or request her. She spends some time with our speech therapist because there are several students who benefit from having her in the room to she's great at conversation starters. So students who might not otherwise want to talk so much to us, she's in the room and all of a sudden they're just talking about their pets and all sorts of great things. She goes to Miss Colbert's class. They have a list of things they do to take care of her every day. Brushing, feeding, snacks, certain things she's allowed to have. Take her out for her walk to use the restroom, and just occasionally helping us clean up towels and things that need to be taken care of. She's in the hallway at all the transitions, greeting students. That's their. If I don't have her, they don't even want to talk to me. The kids are like, where's Zoe? And then at the end of the day, she walks with us out to the bus. And there was one student who didn't want to leave every day. He didn't want to go to the bus, and now he follows her out to the bus and gets on the bus and makes that easy. And then she comes in and listens to me do the announcements in the afternoon and helps us at bus duty. So that's kind of a summary of her day. But it's as needed, too. Some days there are students who may need a little more time with her, so we just make that work. She always has a walkie-talkie so we can get her.
So all the students have been equally as excited as these 2 to have her?
I would say most of them, yes. So we spent a week meeting with each of we have T-Hawk, it's like an advisory class sort of, where we focus on social emotional learning standards. And all of those classes had a time they could circle up around Zoe, see some of her tricks, and then have a chance. I've had very little. There have been a few kids that stand back maybe because of allergies or things like that, but most of the kids just seem to really love her.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing her with us today.
Absolutely. And thank you for your commitment and dedication to getting trained and to going through the process to integrate her into the school. I think it's just another
example of us going above and beyond in our schools to meet the needs of our students and thinking outside the box sometimes, which is great. So thank you.
Yeah,
And
you're
thank you to everybody.
It's been a
Th-
joy, so.
Mr. Miller, I've been asked by a community member what the cost is to have asked Zooey to our staff.
So the cost for Zooey has been picked up by a grant and some funding. The initial cost for us, I believe, is $1,500, and that's it. So training, fault vets, food, things like that are all taken care of.
Thank
It's
you.
my understanding, sorry.
No,
It's
go
my
ahead.
understanding that there's also a vet in the area that has agreed to pick up her medical care for as long as she works for our school. Is that correct? Okay, that's as of last time I heard. And grooming, so.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
It's awesome.
Having two of my own, I know it's not cheap. It's like having another child in the house, so
Yes.
thank you.
All right,
Sometimes better.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Wonderful. Yes. We can give them a round of applause. We're going to come up front, though. We'd like to get a picture. Can you grab these? Sure.
I know, I know.
We might.
Maybe we do. Do you want picture first, Brad? Yeah.
So first up, we have something here for Zoe. Shirt, and she wants the treats. That's right. There he goes. She.
Now she's got her paper.
Fantastic. And if those with the student spotlight, you are more than welcome to leave or stay at this time for the rest of the meeting. We won't be offended.
Run like hell.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. As long as
Didn't
Zooey
mean you.
stays.
All right. We're going to move on to the next section. This is our first opportunity for public comment this evening. Just a reminder that this opportunity is for any agenda item. So if we have anybody that wants to come to the podium and speak, you have 3 minutes allotted to each speaker. Do we have anybody that will be speaking? Please make sure you state your name and your address for the board, please. And this is related to something on the agenda this evening?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Wells. Due to the very specific threats made against our child, I am providing my address in writing to the superintendent. I would like to briefly address an item on the agenda that is being revised, and that is the public participation at board meetings. As stated in the Lakota District Vision and Goals Policy, connecting with residents and businesses is essential to district and community success. This takes place under the guiding principles and core values of accountability, open communications, continuous improvement, integrity, and respect. We will be accountable to the community that creates, maintains, and sustains us. We will create opportunities for people to share thoughts, ideas, and insight, and work to understand individual concerns. Parents and taxpayers in the community all have different schedules and lives to maintain, and by taking away one of the two opportunities to connect with the board, I believe this causes a much larger divide. Sorry, I'm nervous. And that doesn't help with encouraging ongoing communication between the board and community. It's not just important, but necessary to the citizens that these meetings provide a way for everyone to discuss openly the concerns or questions they have with the school board. So in that effort to maintain accountability and transparency, I'm hoping you all will take that into consideration. Nothing separates a community from its schools like shutting it out of its meetings.
Thank you so much for your time. Anybody else would like to make a comment? Please come to the podium and make sure you state your name and your address, please.
My name is Rusty Jesse, 6564 Justice Lane. Two things. First thing, I would like to thank our superintendent and both our lead principals, Card and Davis, for attending the senior swim meet at St. X a couple weeks ago. I would also like to make special mention of our athletic director at East that decided to get in the water and race two Division I swimmers and one girl that's going to a high D3 program in Denison. And I think that's a really good thing whenever the kids see more so Matt and the principals and the teachers participating in, in part of what's going on with the student body and with, their extracurricular, their fun stuff, and not just see them, between the hours of 8 and 3. The other thing I would like to mention is, as the previous person said, I'm thankful that the agenda was put out there nice and early today, so I was able to go out and look at it. And I also have concerns about the work sessions may not have. That's why I don't come when it says work session, because I don't know if I'll be able to ask you guys questions. And I brought that up last year at one of the meetings, and I know Jenny answered the question for me. I will tell you that swim parents at that meet were concerned about the voucher program, and they were talking about that, and between that and the master plan that is being reviewed right now, I agree with the previous speaker that the more open you are, the better. If you're not going to have public speakers, then you should just close it off and stream it, and if we want to watch it from home, we can watch it from home instead of coming up here and saving us the trouble of driving and so forth. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. And I guess that, both of those comments had to do with the board policy, which is in the next section. So we'll just, if it's okay, we'll roll into that and we can have a conversation around that first read at that point. Should be able to address that. We'll move on to the next section then, and that's board policy, or board reports, I'm sorry. And the first one is the policy committee. Todd, would you like to give an update?
Sure. First of all, the drone policy, which is on here. I got several calls today. Based on board docs, it looked like we were rescinding the drone policy completely, which we did, but we replaced it with the Neola drone policy, which is more broad and actually does a better job for our district and our students. So I don't know if that's up on board docs. I know I got a hard copy tonight, but we need to get it up there so the public can see that. I have also heard from several people on the policy of no public comment at work sessions. I'm open for public comment at work sessions, and well, quite honestly, we seem to struggle for topics for work sessions. I'm not sure what a work session really is, and I don't think they're necessary, quite frankly, but that's just me, because, and you can laugh all you want, Kelly.
No, I wasn't laughing at you.
The thing is, this
Just
board
don't like them.
uses work sessions to dive deep into the weeds, gets into the management of the school district, which is not what we are. We are supposed to do governance. We hire the superintendent, we hire the treasurer, and we've got two of the best, by the way.
Yes.
And that's it. We're an oversight committee. We are not to be running the district, and we certainly should not be blocking our constituents and our public from speaking at any meeting if they want to. So.
Yeah,
that's-
and
that's
just to clarify too, I think it's really good for the community to know is that the reason that policy came up because it wasn't in line with what our practices were. We have not been having public speaking at the work sessions. And so what we wanted to do is we actually wanted to align the policy with our practice. So it wasn't that we're making this shift adjustment to getting rid of it. We haven't been doing it.
No,
We've never
and-
done it.
And Brad is exactly correct, but what we did do last year, and I don't know why, but we used to have 2 meetings a month.
2 regular board
Two
meetings.
regular board meetings a month, and then if we needed a work session, we would schedule one. Somewhere last year, it became 1 meeting a month and 1 work session. I want to remain transparent. I want the public to be able to speak their mind. So either we do away with having to have a work session every month, or allow a public comment section
Yeah.
during the work session. That's,
Well,
that's
and
the way
I think
feel.
from my perspective, having come on the board, my understanding was we didn't have enough agenda items to have a regular board meeting. So we knew we didn't need 2 of those. So we had talked about shifting to a work session so we could dive deeper into things like the report card and such like that. I think we made a great step forward this year as well when I'm sorry, I keep just looking at this side. I forget that I have a fellow board member over here. Sorry about that. But, moving a step forward this year and saying, hey, let's actually have a conversation and plan these out. And if there's not enough topics, then let's cut them out. We don't need them. We don't need to meet just for the sake of meeting. But yeah, I think for me, I'm willing to have a conversation about it. I am all about having public comment. If we remember right, 2 years ago, I believe it was myself that brought up bringing back the second public comment section in the meeting, which was opposed. We only had the one, and we said, hey, what would it look like to have over the agenda and actually have an opportunity for community to come in and have broad conversations with us as well. So we've actually increased the number of conversations that our community can have with the board at our meetings. And so if we think that during the work session we should have public comment, I'm for that. All this was aligning what our current practice is, what our board policy was. So I just want to make that clear.
I would be in
And
favor of
Brad and I are
changing.
both on the policy committee, and that being said, these are first reads.
Yep, absolutely they are.
So we're not voting on these this evening, and we'll go back and revisit that.
I
Sorry.
would be in favor of changing our practice
Okay.
to match. I think it's not necessarily considerate to our community and doesn't appear to be transparent if we go a month in between public comment opportunities. So I think it should become a part of our regular work sessions as well, particularly when we look at some of the issues that we have in front of us with the facilities plan and other pieces. I think that the more opportunities we have, the better for our community. So I would change the policy or change our practice both to allow an extra public participation every month.
Okay.
I have
We
no
do have the
problem.
community conversations.
We do.
Right, I say we have a lot of,
all that kind of stuff as well.
However, if there are people that are viewing those or viewing our facilities videos, for instance, and don't have an opportunity to talk at those, we're just creating more opportunities. I don't see that as a negative in any way.
I have no problem with people speaking at a work session.
Right. And again, keeping in mind that we do have other opportunities as well through the coffee chats and
Thought
community
exchange.
conversations, and right now with the facility sessions as well.
Yeah, I think it's important for our community to know, we do, as a board, work really hard to provide opportunities for our community to engage with us. We do have formal meetings, and absolutely, we love for our community to step up to the podium and let us know what they're thinking and what's going on. We also really encourage our community to come to our informal conversations like the superintendent chat, where there's typically 8 to 10 people, and you have a one-on-one with board members and the superintendent. We've got our monthly, sometimes multiple times a month, community conversations as well. We have our new online tool through Thought Exchange. We have social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we have a lot of opportunities to engage, and we just encourage our community to help get that word out, but also communicate with us through those means.
Given that we all seem to be in favor of adding that to the work session, could we go ahead and do that for this upcoming work session this month?
Well, we'll have to go
Actually,
back to the
What
policy.
we're going to have to do is go back to the policy committee and rewrite
Yeah.
the policy.
So the policy meeting will be on March 4th, or the first Friday in March. I think it's March
Well,
4th.
our practice can change before our policy if we're all in favor of that.
I would rather stick with the regular protocol.
just because yeah.
But I thought you were saying that we're, right now, our protocol is not matching our policy, so if.
No. The
We want to
protocol
stick with
about
the policy meeting.
changing the policy and then voting on, this is the first read. We're gonna come
Right.
back with an amended policy, which we will vote on at the next board meeting.
Right.
But I guess what I'm understanding Linda to say is we could change our practice right now because then it would match our current policy that we have,
Right.
couldn't we?
Oh, so at the next work session, what you're
Right.
saying is we could allow public
Oh,
comment?
yeah,
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
fine. I have no problem.
Sorry.
Because that's what
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think Todd and I are on one wavelength and the rest,
Well,
no,
this,
that's fine.
this is the policy committee report,
Right,
so
right.
I thought she was.
I understood it as,
So what it
let's
means-
jump on the policy now
No, what
and
it
not take
means
it
is
through
we
the
would
committee.
table this policy and we
Okay.
just would not implement it.
So
But
we
we
will
would
allow,
also
we will allow
institute-
public comment at the next work session. All right, great.
We may need to still clean up the language in that policy. We need to reread it just to make it super clear, even if we keep public comment in the work session, to make sure it explicitly says that.
Right.
I just think it's smart to add that language.
I
We can
think
review
that's
it.
fine, but I think it's also okay to go ahead and add it to this
fine.
agenda.
Yep.
Or to this month's agenda.
Okay,
And just as a reminder, our next work session is going to be on early childhood education.
okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
On the 24th, I believe.
All right. Okay, so next up, Community Engagement Committee.
Julie?
We have 4 community conversations scheduled. February 20th at 6:30 at East on student anxiety. We have one on Friday, the 28th, that's at Chesterwood Village at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's with our seniors. That one's only going to be an hour. Typically, they're an hour and a half. We thought that we'd shorten that one a little. On Thursday, on March 12th, that's with our junior high students at Plains. That's with our 7th and 8th graders at 11 o'clock. Again, we visited the other junior highs, so Plains is the only junior high we haven't visited yet. And then on Thursday, March 26th at 6:30, Cherokee has asked to partner with Heritage, so that's going to be at Cherokee, and we're not certain of the topic. Cherokee and Heritage are co-hosting it, and they're creating that topic. So again, we're sort of letting them facilitate that, and we'll let you know as soon as we know more about that. And then again, the next coffee chat is going to be on the 4th of March at 7 o'clock, and I believe that's going to be back at Coffee, Beans, and Brew. So those are opportunities we have coming up for both coffee chats and community conversations. So we have not had a community conversation to report out the results of since our last meeting.
We did have a committee meeting, though, and did have some discussion about going next year to one community conversation a month instead of the current 2.
Is there a reason for decreasing?
Part of it is we have not had the attendance that we have gotten in the past, and so we know how busy people are, and we've added so many other areas for the community to be able to reach out to us, like you said, via the coffee chat and the thought exchange, and that we just thought we would focus more narrow and deep.
And I think what the point was, if we're doing more things with facilities, that would be another one we would add into the mix. So it would be regular community conversation.
Facilities.
And then a
yeah.
facility one too. So led by 2 different speakers, wouldn't be Jeff's deck.
Okay.
And that it would get too confusing if we were trying to do 2 regular community conversations in
In a
addition to
facility.
facilities, and that might just become too much, and that we're almost trying to require people to come or try to pull people in versus people voluntarily coming in. And again, if there was a situation like the Cherokee where a school wanted a
Reached out to
specific
us.
issue, or somebody reached out to us and wanted to host a specific issue, we would. And we're also going to try to go more towards where we had a specific speaker that would host like the first 15 minutes, like when Jenny did hers on the first 15 minutes where she presented on our finances, and then people spoke, or when Rob presented on like the E+R=O work and what we're doing to build culture within the buildings, and then people had a discussion about it. So we're going to try to build more where there's a specific topic, such as the anxiety, like what are some of the things that are currently being done within the building so people are more aware of what's happening within the buildings, and then having a discussion around those specific topics. We feel like those are a little more informative while still allowing people to have discussions.
A
and
little more
a little more
information
robust
session,
discussions.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Butler Tech?
Butler Tech is doing a first-time fundraiser. They're calling it Dunk and Donate. That is March 12th. And it's going to be at the Miami Valley, what it's called, Miami Valley Gaming Center. They would like everybody to come to that, and here's information. There's more information on their website. So that'll be a fundraiser to help build their programs at Butler Tech. If anybody is interested or has any businesses that are interested in sponsoring that, they would love to have participation in that program. And again, it's Friday, March 20th. They are also, at this point, they just started their 5th day experience. It was Friday on the snow day, unfortunately, but that's sort of how the 5th day experience started, was developing out of a snow day, so that was all good. So they've had great participation. Again, for those who don't recall, the 5th day experience for Butler Tech is right now. For 15 days, the students aren't required to come to their regular classes on Friday. They have an opportunity to experience different things. So students signed up for a variety of different things. It could be a regular class. It could be going to work. Some of them signed up for driver's ed. They had a whole host of different internships. There's a whole variety of different opportunities. Somebody who might be in a totally different program could sign up and do welding. You know, it's giving them exposure to entirely different experiences on this 5th day experience. So they've had great participation. If kids didn't want to sign up for anything, they didn't have to, but they got great participation, and they're very excited with how that program is going, and it kicked off on Friday. Kids right now are applying for next year, and they're having very robust participation for next year. Their concern, as it has been, is that they're capped in their funding, and they're not going to be able to get the number of slots that they need to fulfill the demand for students. There was a legislative visit last week where they met with several different people up in Columbus, and that was well received, pleading their case for why we need to invest in career tech and opportunities for students. So hopefully they'll continue to be able to build those programs and build opportunities for kids in career tech. So I think that will be it. I hope to, next month I may show, we can actually break down what number of our kids are in each of the programs. So I'd like to be able to show that to you. And I may take the time to do that next month if the board is interested in seeing what our kids are actually participating in Butler Tech. Oh, one more thing. They have a cafe that the culinary students do, and they serve lunch every Wednesday and Thursday. It used to be Thursday and Friday, but because of the 5th day experience, it's now Wednesday and Thursday, and that is now open. And you can go and you can, again, look at that online, but the community is welcome to go and eat at the cafe, and the culinary students are preparing lunch for the community. If you're interested, you have to pay for lunch, but they do a nice job there.
I know the majority of us were able to make it to the groundbreaking or the grand opening ribbon cutting of the Biotech Center here in Westchester, and it's that was my first time being able to step foot in that building, and I have to say, very impressed by what they have going on over there. It's a great opportunity for our students, but collectively the county and all the students that are able to go there and engage in those programs. And I selfishly thought it'd be fun to be a substitute teacher there as well. It was just a cool environment, and the kids are just,
Oh my gosh, they're so,
really engaged.
they love it there.
Yeah,
They couldn't stop talking about their teachers and the programs.
yeah,
It's a nice building.
They're looking for volunteers for their phlebotomy students, so I was a pincushion for kids who were, they need 30 successful pricks to pass their tests, so.
Right.
Anyway.
Great, well, thank you. Anything else? Okay, Finance Business Advisory Committee?
Finance Committee met on January 22nd. Jenny's going to talk tonight about the refunding debt refinancing, and she reviewed that with the committee. She talked through debt service and debt policies, and I believe she'll be bringing some of that forward. And we're planning on a rainy day stress test, rainy day funding stress test, so that'll be coming forward, I think, in the next couple of months. Is that correct? Did you want to talk about this now, Jenny? You're going to wait till after?
What, about the stress test or?
About debt refinancing?
Yeah, the debt refinancing, I'm going to do under the administrative report and just kind of give you a snapshot of that, as well as total debt. We went over the total debt at the committee meeting too, so we're going to kind of review that. But we've got some things for future meetings, and definitely that stress test is one, recommendation on new financial HR software, and then the valuation complaint process. That will be coming back up next month too. So those were the 3 items.
That's it? Okay, Legislative Committee?
Kelly, do you want to start?
Well, is Matt going to do Ed Choice?
Yes.
I will, yeah, I'll do that under administrative report.
Well, we're pinning all of our hopes and dreams. That's all we've heard about is Ed Choice. I don't have any other legislative unless, I know you were gone this week, so you may have more.
Matt, do you have something else?
No, nothing other than a choice, which I'll hit here in a few minutes.
Jenny?
Oh, that's it, Ed Choice.
That's all we're talking about.
I had the opportunity over the last week to attend 3 different conferences. 2 of them were in Washington and one was in Columbus. And the 2 in Washington were actually during the impeachment process, and the one in Columbus was during the Ed Choice vote. I felt like I was watching a lot of sausage being made. It was an interesting process, and still not resolution on at least the Ed Choice piece. The first conference was an equity symposium. It was a 1-day conference in DC. And I'll have a lot of information to post, but it will be a lot to get up, so it will take a little bit to do that. A lot of good conversation around things like the homework app, where we're talking about how technology impacts equity for our students, leveraging board policies and leadership practices, and that we could inadvertently in our policies perpetuate inequities when we're not even really thinking about that. So some great information on that. Combating hate in schools. I think we hear a lot about our bullying issues. And again, what are we, through leadership practices, doing to make sure that that is not a continuing process that we are inadvertently facilitating? One really interesting conversation was about mental health through the eyes of an adolescent and what that looked like. So there was some very interesting information there. And then the Advocacy Institute is part of the Federal Relations Network that I do every year, and that's serving as a representative for Ohio Congressional District 8, which is Warren Davidson's district, and included not only the Advocacy Institute and professional development along those lines, but it also included visits with Senators Portman and Brown and Congressman Davidson's office, delivering our story and what our concerns are, and that's done through, I have feedback from Ginny and from Matt, and also through Butler Tech, from both the superintendent and the treasurer there, and took those issues forward, and they know who we are. They know who Lakota is. They know who Butler Tech is. So great information there. Really appreciated that. And then had another meeting in Columbus immediately after that for a legislative seminar by the Ohio ACTE, which is the Association for Career Technical Education, and a lot of presentations, panel presentations, about innovative business and school collaborations that were really interesting too. So again, a lot of information, and also visited Representative Lang's office while I was there. A lot of information to post for all of you, and if you have questions about it once it's up, I'll let you know that it is posted. Please feel free to contact me.
Great. Questions?
I just have one question, or not a question, but just a comment. Is it possible in the future that you could let us know as a board when you're traveling on these conferences? Like, I just had no idea you were gone to all 3 of those conferences. I mean, just for our own personal, like, in case there was something we wanted to ask you, or?
I believe I did send notification out.
No, I didn't get anything, I didn't get anything. That's why.
I can resend you the email. That's all I have.
Okay.
I think that's it for legislative till Matt gets to Ed Choice.
On to the fun, right?
Right.
So next section here is administrative report. Mr. Miller?
I'll talk a little bit about Ed Choice. When we were designing this agenda, I think we thought we were going to have a little bit more information to share, but the emails will be coming fast and feverishly. As probably most of you know, the deadline or the application window for EdChoice was going to open on February 1st. Legislators put a 60-day hold on that on January 31st. So essentially now the window for applications will open on April 1st, which is kind of an ironic date. On January 31st, we were watching the ohiochannel.org where there was testimony in both the House and Senate about it. And essentially they've come now to House Bill 9, Senate Bill 89, and I think it's safe to say and accurate that the leadership of both the House and the Senate are at odds with one another. I don't think that's a surprise, and I think you can see that, not even reading between the lines, just some of the comments being made, and some of you have been working in other areas on that. One of the gentlemen, one of our legislators in the Senate, who's actually a Republican from the Cleveland area, Matt Dolan, sent out a memorandum that I believe that you got, but a couple points that I'll highlight for tonight's meeting that I think is really the crux of the problem. So I don't want to read the whole thing, but I do want to mention a couple of them. And this is a memorandum that went to the House of Representatives and the Senate last Friday. And I'm quoting, "So the recent problem of school vouchers demonstrates how complicated education policy is in Ohio because of changes," excuse me, I get choked up over this, because of changes in the report card system made nearly 7 years ago. So the fallout from EdChoice essentially started 7 years ago. So we're going to be up to just over 1,200 schools through the state that are designated as failing. The inadvertent result is due to the faulty metrics used to measure our school quality, and it's uniformly accepted as the problem. So he talks about a little bit how to fix it. The House version of the fix suggests a nearly immediate overhaul of the entire voucher system. While not yet opining on the merits of this idea, I'm questioning the urgency to go this route without public discussion, committee deliberation, and a long-term view of the consequences, which I will remind everybody that the expansion part of the voucher was included in a budget bill at the 11th hour with no conversation with the players that be. Excuse me. But he makes some other good points, I think, for both sides of this initiative. What happens to urban renewal if families are no longer eligible for vouchers yet live in a school system designated as failing? What's the incentive of low-performing schools to improve if performance-based scholarships are eliminated? So I think that's a good point, too, that school districts in Ohio needs to think about. What's the impact of the major change on schools on the guarantee and the cap? How will cap schools react when millions of dollars get diverted to income-based vouchers when their claim is that they've been underfunded by hundreds of millions of dollars already? So this speaks to funding in Ohio. This speaks to the report card. It speaks to the voucher system. And Mrs. Logan made a comment today at the office that essentially the outcry over EdChoice and vouchers should be the same outcry we have on the report card system, the metrics we use for that, and on school funding. So this is not, once this is settled, however that's settled, I don't think the outcry over where we're at should go away. Another interesting point he has is if this goes through as it's written, and hopefully it doesn't, what impact will this have on local levies? I don't think Lakota so much, but I'm worried about some of our neighbors who are going to have to be passing levies if it stays in effect to fund the voucher system. His last point, which I'll sort of end on this and be glad to have any dialogue, is the future of our education system deserves more than political tweets about how great a plan this is for Ohio. Let's do the right thing, take a breath, which we've been talking about doing, fix the immediate problem, take our time to get the long-term policy fix done the right way through purposeful, inclusive, transparent, and with a long-term vision. And I'm hoping that our governor sees the wisdom in that too, and both the House and Senate could get on board to make some big overhaul and big changes.
So both Senator Huffman and Speaker of the House, Householder, spoke at one of the conferences, and they are miles apart in terms of what their priorities are. One of the things I appreciated about what Speaker Householder said was that he was looking to have as a part of what they wanted to do with Senate Bill 89 was to have a joint committee that would come forward no later than October 1st and focus on the report card as a flawed accountability measure, on school funding, and on this whole question of ed choice. So I don't think this is a done deal by any means. I think we'll continue to see a lot of shifts and back and forth because the priorities are very, very different. I think for our families and for our community, they're looking for the right choices for their children. And I think we can all support that. We want to be a district of choice, and I think public school districts should be districts of choice. I think the accountability measure for us, if that's across the board and it's a level playing field, I think that's a priority. So I think our focus is more on the accountability part of it than anything else.
And I think the accountability measures, if that goes into effect, should be the same for all schools.
Right.
Well, I agree with that, and that's kind of,
Or not,
I
yeah.
agree with you. I think that you have to have an accountability measure as a component to it. I just do. I think there are way too many side effects that occur when you don't have that. However, I think that what we've said from the beginning is that, or at least for me, I'll just speak for myself, is I think school choice is important.
Yep.
However, if public tax dollars are going to another school because that school has been deemed more effective or better, then the metric should be same as the one that we have been deemed failing or not effective. I just want to make sure that the value remains, and if there's not going to be metrics or somebody's not going to be able to give an indication that that school is actually better, then it defeats the entire purpose. And I know I'm speaking to the choir, but I think that that's extremely important for us to just keep reiterating as a board or as individuals to our legislators that, you know, if we want school choice and we believe that's important, that we've got to maintain the metrics for everybody that's getting those tax dollars. Because again, like we've said before, this is the first time that your local tax dollars are not staying local. That's important.
In one of the meetings I was in up in Columbus, that's what one of the fellow school districts I was up there, they're like, we just passed a levy. We committed to not laying off these 50 teachers by doing that levy and the opportunities that that created for our students. And now, if this goes through, we're basically expecting for students that never stepped foot in our door, we're now going to have to lay off 40 teachers that we just promised we weren't going to by passing this levy. And so those opportunities are going away for our students that we're keeping. And that's what we don't feel good about as a district. You know, we promised one thing and we're not going to be able to keep that promise for the students that are remaining. And that doesn't feel good to us as what we're going to be able to deliver to the kids that remain within our walls and those opportunities. But it was, the good news is we did meet with Representative Cupp, and he did say, he's like, I feel like the good that's going to come out of this is that we realize we can't keep piecemealing this, and the joint task force that Mrs. Logan sat on that looked at a bipartisan solution for school funding, and I know Matt's also sat on a committee to look at the report card. I feel like finally we're going to look at things holistically and not just piecemeal. So it made me hopeful that
Root
we will
causes.
stop looking at just adding things last minute to bills and instead looking at things holistically, hopefully going forward, because we realize how this whole thing blew up when unintended consequences happened.
And when we looked at, we did a lot of research when we were developing our fair school funding plan. And around the whole topic of choice, we could find no other state that was anywhere close to the choice that we have in this state, not just that, but the public dollars, the state dollars, the local dollars now, that are going towards choice. We could find no state that was close to Ohio. And I still believe one of the questions that has to be answered is, how comfortable are we with public dollars going to private schools? So that's just a question. I mean, we can all believe in choice.
Right.
But that's a fundamental question that is going to have to be answered. And I don't have the answer, but.
I think we have another fundamental question, too, that's even deeper than that, and that is the fact that our core competency is student achievement. And regardless of what accountability measure is put in front of us, That has to remain our priority. And I think, frankly, we should be having more conversations as a board about our student achievement. Where are we? What are we doing with it? How are we looking for those areas where we're not matching whatever the accountability is? And how are we resolving those? I think those should be public discussions.
I believe we have that on a, do we have that as a work session agenda
Yes, moving
coming
that
up?
on the work session.
We
Yeah,
do
and
because
I-
I asked for it, yes.
And I
Well, and we
agree, and I
agreed.
agree with
It's
you
not like
too.
we were fighting you on it.
Right. But, you know, like you said just a few minutes ago, when there's a flawed report card system and assessment system, it's hard to capture all of that.
There's no easy answer to it,
Yeah.
Matt, but I still think that has to be the shining light that we're aiming toward.
Sure. The other thing too, I'll say about this, and I think it was Senate Bill 89, but I'm not sure, was that there was going to be a committee of legislators to work on the issues related to the
89.
report card and to
That's what I was
funding.
just saying, the Joint Conference Committee?
Right.
That was
but
Senate Bill 89.
I'm hoping, I'm concerned that it's only legislators because we are here because of them
Right.
on this issue. And I'm hoping that there are other voices in that room aside from them. Experts in the field, per se.
So I will share some feedback. One of the things with all the hard work that Jenny and her team put in on that was that they felt there should have been legislators in the room for that, and that it was just those in the field. So I think a combination would be
Yep, me too.
more practical, but I'm not sure that will happen.
I know, it's not written that way, which concerns
not.
me.
And we had several legislators that were part of our process.
Uh,
But again, yes.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay,
You're
Mrs.
up.
Logan? She gave the head nod.
Okay, so a few months ago, we talked about a refunding. And so a refunding is in terms for our public refinancing debt. So just like you do with your home, there was an opportunity where interest rates were lower than what our current debt was at. And so we were going to take advantage of refinancing so that we could save money. The goals of that refinancing, of course, were to have lower interest expense on the outstanding debt. Also, there was a net PV savings of 4%, industry standard, and that's present value savings. Industry standard is 3 to 5%. Our goal was 4. To earn the highest bond rating from Standard & Poor's and Moody's, and to restructure our debt if possible. And the results. We were able to save over $1.9 million in the interest expense, which is a direct savings to our taxpayers. And so what I mean by that is when we issue debt, we have to collect that money from our taxpayers. So if the interest expense goes down, we collect less from our taxpayers. So that's a direct result, a direct savings to you, the taxpayer. The savings came in at 4.3%. We received a AA plus from Standard & Poor's and a AA1 from Moody's. This is one notch below a AAA. AAA is as good as you can get. Then it goes to AA's, and it's just like a plus is better than a minus, or we're number 1 is better than we're number 2 or 3. And then below that, it goes to AA's, then into the B's, which is bad. We also were able to accelerate our debt payments, to restructure our debt, and so we're going to pay off this debt 2 years earlier than what we had on the books. I want to kind of go into, though, a little bit about the part, if you look at what the goals were and what the results were, I really wanted that AAA, right, Matt? I really wanted that AAA. And what happens with that is you actually prepare information and you go and present your story, the Lakota story, and why you believe you deserve a AAA to analysts with Moody's and S&P. Mr. Miller and I did that, and we came close, but we were not able to reach the AAA. I want to kind of read over just a few things. First of all, in the state of Ohio, there are 4 school districts who have a AAA from Moody's. There are 5 who have a AAA from S&P. There are 610 school districts. So this is not easy to get. From Moody's, they mentioned that our strengths are a large affluent tax base and strong reserves and liquidity. Our challenges, elevated unfunded pension liability, which we can't control. That's part of the pension that we pay into at the state level. And somewhat weak voter support for operating levy increases. We remember that history. What could lead to an upgrade, significant tax base expansion and increased income levels, or sustained reduction in unfunded pension liabilities. I just want to mention we don't control either one of those. What could lead to a downgrade, significant decline in reserves, or an increase in debt or pension burdens. That's Moody's. S&P said our strengths, our participation in the Cincinnati-Dayton metro area economies, very strong median household effective buying income, very strong general fund reserves, low debt burden, good financial management. Offsets, though, to this, they don't call them challenges, they say offsets, are mixed voter history and the likelihood of additional debt in the future. They know that we're going through a facilities process. What could lead to an upgrade? Economic indicators could improve. Evidence of sustained voter support for bond and levy increases while maintaining a very strong reserve. What could lead to a downgrade? Voter referendum failure resulting in weakening of reserves. I think that voter piece was mentioned several times. But I wanted to kind of review that. I think there are some thoughts and ideas that we screwed up when we went for these bond rating. That is not the case. We did our best, and the things that we could change, or the things that were impacted against us, we really can't, they weren't within our control, and so I'm trying to get
Moody's
over it.
kind of said that before we even spoke.
Yes, they did. They did, but I still held out hope.
Right.
So here is just a snapshot of the savings. As you can see, this debt piece goes through, it did go through 2029. You're going to notice that the refunding debt service, that column, that now it stops at 2027. So when you look at that savings and you see those negatives by about $1 million through 2026, that's because we accelerated the debt payments. We added about $1 million more onto each one of those for the debt. And you'll see that $1.9 million in savings. The other part I just wanted to share is we've had some questions. What is our outstanding debt? So this is just a chart to show all those pieces of debt that we currently have. This includes, I tried to kind of color code it. The blue is relative to voted debt, what we actually have, our community has voted on. The green are those debts that are paid for by the general fund. And then we do have some debt with our permanent improvement fund. Our millage rate is going to be reduced down again this year. It was reduced by 1 mil last year. It's being reduced by another mil this year. So we're now at 2 mils. It was over 5 when I came in.
Wow.
We're down to 2. And the other bullet points over there I just wanted to mention, in 2027, our debt service payments, which are about $14 million now, will go down. They'll be half that in 2027. And so that's that's the information I wanted to share with you tonight, and any questions you might have.
I think not getting the AAA rating yet just makes you want to get more, right? So I'm not sure when the right time for that to go back is, but I think as soon as possible.
Well, and you shared the actual impact on the interest rate was like, what, 0.05 basis, it was very small. What was it?
It was very small, 5 basis points. And that had to do with the timing of when we went to the market, and who else was in the market, the volume that was actually there. It's kind of like the demand was there, but there was nobody else in the market at the time we went. So, yeah.
How often can you go back, Jenny? Is it,
For the bond rating,
is there set times or?
no, but the way that you usually do this is if you're going to issue debt, you're going to refinance, if you want to restructure your debt, those are the times that you would look at it. Or they could call you and say, we're doing a surveillance and we're going to look at your bond rating again. And they've done that before.
Jenny, we've reduced by 2 mills, you said, in the past 2 years. And so just so we're clear with our community, when we reduce our millage, it's less that we're collecting from our community through that millage.
That is correct.
Okay, I just think that that's really important as we start to talk about the debt refinancing and everything that you're doing. The effective millage that was passed through the operating, which isn't associated with this, continues to go down over time. In addition to the mills that we're collecting for our debt service is also going down, which means we're collecting less money each year from our community.
That is correct. We have seen that millage rate that we collect from our community. It has been reducing, and we are now below the effective millage rate, what we were collecting before we passed that last levy. So it's pre-levy millage now. And just one little side note, so we don't decide what the bond millage rate is. That's actually at the county level. Budget Commission decides that, but we have a part of that conversation. Yes.
Any other questions for either Matt or Jenny?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Moving on to new business. Do we have any new business? All right. Hearing no new business, move on to treasurer recommendations. Approval of board members' minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Oh,
Go ahead.
Any
it's all yours,
discussion?
Jules.
Jenny, would you like to call roll?
Mr. Parnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to superintendent's recommendations, we have 3 items here. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Yes, I have some questions.
Okay.
I'm looking at the personnel items. Supplementals. I would like to know why the track coach supplemental is $9,000. I'd also like to know why there's a Brenton Eisenhard, a Bruce Eisenhard, and a Rhonda Eisenhard, all track coaches getting $9,000, $5,000, and $5,000 apiece. There also seems to be some other repetitive names here. I want to know who decides on these supplementals, how they're derived, and who decides who gets what, and who decides on who a coach is.
So the coaches would be hired through our athletic directors in conjunction.
Our athletic director at West is
Scott Kaufman. And the salary ranges would be set by the negotiated agreement.
Correct. They're set in the negotiated agreement. So each position has a certain dollar amount, which is different than a lot because there's no salary schedule. It's
Right.
just a certain amount for the position.
And isn't it impacted by the number of athletes that you
Correct.
are
How many
supervising?
sign up? Yeah.
That was my question.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many kids you have?
And there is a matrix by which they determine the dollar amount, and yes. I can't answer about the specifics of the people, but we can
No.
find out.
I think they're all hired through the athletic directors, right?
Haven't heard anything.
Okay, then I'll direct my questions to the athletic director. Thank you.
I can help you with that later.
It's something that the public should notice, though. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think it's also important to recognize, too, that there are 3 different funding sources for our supplementals, whether it's through the general operating fund, participation free, or volunteer.
And I noticed that, but
Yeah,
the 3 that I mentioned all.
okay. Great. Any other discussion? Okay, Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mrs. Casper,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Parnell,
No.
Mrs. Schaefer,
Yes.
and Mr. Lovell.
Yes. Okay, that moves us on to our second public comment section of the evening. This is an opportunity for any resident to speak. Do we have anybody that would like to come forward? Please state your name and address, please. You'll have 3 minutes allotted.
Hi again, my name is Vanessa Wells, and Mr. Miller, I gave him my address. I just wanted to say, I'm a mom, but not just a mom. I had to write some of this stuff down because I can't.
Can you put your microphone down just a little bit more? Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
My military background and extensive training has taught me to understand that we all handle traumatic events differently. Also, I want to state, I will not give specific names of staff
We appreciate that.
or students tonight.
Thank you.
But we all handle traumatic events differently, but silencing a victim was never a part of that training. In March, our daughter, along with 5 other classmates who will unknowingly be subpoenaed, will be testifying against a peer who was charged with aggravated menacing due to threatening to bring a knife to school to stab our daughter. The first time these parents will hear about the numerous graphic threats that were made will be in a courtroom filled with scared elementary-age children, not from the school or anyone in the district. There has been no transparency in this process. To me, this should serve as a red flag, as there is a breakdown of communication in the system that needs to be addressed. The policies in place, the chain of command that parents are required to follow, it is broken. For 6 months, our family has dealt with repeated in-school court violations, questions, written requests for meetings with the board and superintendent, and it took social media for this situation to receive any response. If you see something, say something is a great idea in theory, but what programs are in place to advocate for the kids who do say something? Every child has the basic right to feel safe in school, but from our experiences, the victim has far less rights and support than the aggressor. If nothing else, I hope that this will start a much-needed conversation on difficult topics that are at the forefront of our children's lives and inspire a great deal of change within the district. We can lock and bolt all the classroom doors to protect from outside threats, but then it doesn't make much sense to let them walk right through the door. 3 minutes doesn't give me a lot of time to cover what we've dealt with in the last 6 months of our lives, so I am requesting a meeting with all of the board to sit down and talk to you about this. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your comments. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Okay, not seeing any, we'll move on to our closing comments for this evening.
You wanted to respond to her?
I can respond to you, yes. I know that you've reached out to Mr. Miller, and we are having conversations as the board. I recognize the fact that you've asked to meet with us, and so what we'll do is we'll have a conversation and reach back out with you to set up that time and follow policy, which I know you have a copy of that as well. Yep, thank you. Okay. Any other? Okay. Moving on to closing comments. Start with Mr. Parnell.
I have none.
Many of us had the opportunity to attend the fundraiser for Edge Teen Center on Saturday night. I think all of us actually were there. They're a great partner to us, both for East and West, an opportunity for our students to attend after school. And I think it was a great success, and we appreciate all that they do for our students. So thank you to them. And if anybody hasn't had an opportunity to check out Edge, I would strongly encourage them to do so.
Mrs. O'Connor.
I was waiting for you to say something.
That's all right.
Mrs. Wells, thank you for speaking to the board, and thank you for bringing forward issues that where we can make improvement to what we're doing, because that's the only way that we get to where we need to be. So thank you for that. Just looking forward to lots of work in the next couple of months.
Yes, lots of work.
I'm good, thank you. Jenny?
Nothing?
I was going to mention Edge.
Yeah, Julie did that.
So thank you for that. The other thing I'll say that is our students at East are working on a solar array and the National Honor Society, so we had a meeting with them today, so I look forward to bringing something back to the board on that soon.
Yes, thank you. Again, enjoyed the Edge Teen Center event. It's a great partner. We have a lot of great partners. We talk about that all the time. It's often, it's not often that we get to go out and just support and have fun in that manner, and so it was great seeing the rest of the board there that evening. It was a great event, lots of numbers. I just wanted to make mention as well. We talked earlier in the meeting about opportunity for public comment here at the meetings, and I think that we can all agree that it's important that we do whatever we can to hear. It's also important that we take feedback from what we hear and to kind of adjust and think about how we can do things differently. I also want to encourage our community as well to think about all the different platforms that we have that we can communicate with you. And so if one way of communication isn't working, just know that there are multiple means, whether it's through email or phone number, our district website, or our social media channels, which are monitored by our PR and communications. I know all of our emails are listed on our website with our phone numbers as well. We actively pursue conversations with our community, but we also, just like Mr. Parnell mentioned earlier today, we are governance and we are an oversight board. And so we sit and we allow our management that we hire to do the job in our district. And it's important that we often stay in that oversight governance role, because sometimes we are the ultimate authority and we need to be fair and unbiased at that moment to be able to hear those conversations and what's going on. Does that mean that we shouldn't make sure that our communication and everything is intact and we're constantly working on that? Absolutely not. We need to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that we're all being informed of what's going on, and that's a reflective point for us as a board. But I also want to make sure that the community understands our role as a Board of Education as well. I think that's really important, and what policies exist to make sure that that stays the way it is. Okay? With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mrs. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mrs. Casper?
Yes.
Mr. Parnell?
Yes.
Mr. Lovell?
Yes. Oh,